Good morning, everybody. Hoping that lots of you can join this morning regardless of the load shedding status. Before we start, I would like to share a little bit more about the Enshrine Learning Academy. Usha, Belinda, Karen, and I are part of this learning academy where we're passionate about sharing what we know and what our passion is and sharing it with you. So what is the belief at Enshrine and part of the Learning Academy? It's all about igniting growth through knowledge, insight, and awareness. And we're strongly passionate about making the best you can be, whether it's in your career, in your leadership, in your personal life, in any way you can be the best you can be. So the two upcoming events are in April and in May. The 17th of April, it's going to be about Agile Leadership, and I'll touch on that a little bit later, why this is so important. And it's presented by Belinda Doverston, who is absolutely a genius when it comes to Agile Leadership. So it's really going to be an exciting webinar. And then we have Usha in May, on the 15th of May, and again from 9 to 10. And it's all about dealing with change. And aren't we in a perfect environment where we've got the opportunity to deal with change on a daily, hourly basis? So again, this is an amazing webinar presented by Usha, and she's absolutely awesome when it comes to personal development and leadership as well. And my question is, have you completed your contribution compass profile? If you haven't, please send an email to Karen at enshrineacademy.co.za. I think, let me just go to the previous slide to make sure. So you can go to the website enshrineplacements.com, and you'll see the Learning Academy, and from there you can get your link to contribution compass, and I'll be sharing a little bit more about that later. And yes, so we were going to have another presenter on board, and so I've got to introduce myself. I'm Anne Barrett. I'm Belgian, but have lived in South Africa since 1983. So I feel South African, even though I'm not sounding South African. And I'm talking about my passion is about performance, in specifically corporate, but it's actually performance happens in any relationship anyway, and I will apply it in different environments. This session will be recorded, and you will get a live link, and we'll also run a few polls during the session. And please, I'd love this to be an interactive session, so please drop down your questions or comments in the Dropbox, in the chat box, I mean. And yes, if you can start by sharing what your name is and where you are located, and you know, so that I know where you guys are from. I see Stefan says that he's lost the signal. We definitely live. I'm on a UPS, so there won't be any interruption from my side. So maybe close all your other browsers, or maybe try a different browser than the one that you're currently on. And Karen posted the email address, Karen Darley. Thank you, Karen, for the contribution compass token. So let's start. So prime to perform. So there is a science behind that. So there's a science behind measuring performance, and for me, anything that is measurable is a bonus, because then we can see where we are from and where we're going, what we want to achieve, and we can measure it the whole time. I see some people from around the country, from Cape Town, from Rustenburg, from Joburg. This is nice. So let me start. So why do we focus so much on performance? Well, if every single person in an organization could increase their performance by just 10% in any way, through solving problems, to taking initiative, to understanding what they're better at, through persistence or resilience, there's so many different ways that we can improve performance. And just 10% is way more than what we currently have. And if it's compounded effect, obviously each individual 10%, it's 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 that goes to amazing results. And culture is like a background conversation. It surrounds you, it's invisible, but it's actually very tangible in the behaviors that you will see in different environments. So the important thing is first to understand what drives peak performance in individuals. So what is the inner drive? So what we're looking today is going to look at intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. But the important thing to remember is that why we work affects how well we work. So the why constantly comes back into play. So Simon Sinek talks about the why of organization, why they're so important. But the why of the individual is as important as the why of the organization. And if the two whys are aligned, then there is magic happening in both environments. And thank you for all we've got from outside the country as well. We've got from Zimbabwe. Welcome all to this webinar. It's so nice to have you all here. So I'm looking here as to where we came from when we looked at performance through the time. So our education in general and the studies at university is still based on traditional organization, where it's about tactical performance, is about mass production, it's about doing what I tell you to do, and you don't have to answer anything. You just fit this bolt on or this nut onto this bolt, and this is your job. So this was the environment that we used to work. Due to technology, we've had to get more engaged with collaborations within the organization. So we started understanding that working in a silo environment isn't the most productive way to function. When it comes to working with other companies, we started understanding that it was important to see the cooperation, the collaboration with the suppliers was important. Then we started seeing that engagement with communities are important. So it's not just within the organization and with our suppliers, it's also about the community. So actually at the end of the day, we are now where we're at what we call a social enterprise. So it's very important to look at all your stakeholders within this environment, within the government, the municipal, the suppliers, the ecosystem of the enterprise, immediate and further on. And that is something that we haven't been taught or learned, and this is the biggest changes that organizations have to do. So this is based on a survey done by Deloitte and Touche so it's recent, it is in 2018, and what the biggest need is, what everybody recognizes as the most important, is the importance of the symphonic C-suite, what they call, which means that the C-suite, the executive team, have to work together as a whole, as a symphony. So not one department shining over another, but collaboratively create beautiful music. And that is the biggest drive. So there is a need, the importance is 85%, but only 40% of the companies are ready to be able to implement it. And I'd like to do my first poll is understanding understanding what the reason is that you have attended this webinar, so that it gives me an idea what making sure that I cover what it is that you would like to learn for yourself. Is it more for yourself, or is it more for the organization? I believe a lot of the companies, most of the people are from organizations where there are HR leaders, but I just want to make sure that I understand what the need is of this group of people. So so far it looks like we've got majority of people is actually about intrinsic motivations for yourself, so as an individual. So it looks like 50-50 for the moment, 60-40. So it's great, because my assumption, which is always wrong to have assumptions, is that the majority of the people would be about leading teams or HR people or managers. So this is great to know that. So if I carry on this while the poll is carrying on, the second one is about understanding people data, having data about people. So the tools I'm going to be sharing with you are some of the tools that we can use to understand where we're at with our employees, or with ourselves, as to are we on the right track? What are the dysfunctions within a team? What is it that I'm not trusting with other people? So there's a great variety of data that is available, readily available, and I'd love to share some of that. Thank you, guys. We ended up this poll on exactly 60-40. So 60, you want to learn more about intrinsic motivation for yourself, and 40% of you want to learn more about motivation for your organization. So that's quite interesting. Thank you very much. One of the values or the data that we can measure, which I'm not going to go into detail, but you're welcome to contact me if you want more information. There is a measurable tool to identify dysfunctions within organizations. And the first one, which is the most important one, is absence of trust. And we're not talking about trust being, I trust you that you're honest or you've got integrity. It's more about, I entrust you to do this job. I trust that you have the skills and the information and the capabilities and the passion to be able to do your job. As in an environment. The second biggest one is our fear of conflict, and that's where I love to come in organizations, is we're not able to have conversations where we debate things that we don't agree on. And it happens in all environments. It happens in your personal environment, personal intimate relationship, family relationships. Anytime there's two or more people involved, there's often that fear of conflict, which doesn't allow things to be able to be shared openly, so from where this common decisions can be agreed or common commitment. So if you're not able to trust your colleagues that they're going to do the job in a way, you end up doing it yourself. Or if you're avoiding conversations, you go back into your own silo, because things are working, because you've got control or perceived control over that. So that leads to a lack of common commitment as a team, which leads then to a lack of accountability. And the last thing we can actually focus on is results. So what happens in most organizations is when we do KPIs, we're setting out, we focus on the net results we want to achieve, but we've got absolute no trust with our team members, and we fear conversations. So we rather stick to what we know and not get involved. So you can ask any questions at any time. I'll try to fish them in between the different chat info. So yes, so Lucana says that the broadcast has started. Yes, so if you can hear me, then it is maybe that then you definitely are on the podcast. Otherwise, just try to refresh your browser. So today is going to be focused on understanding the science of a performance, and it's based on a book. It's two writers, Neil Doshi and Lindsay McGregor, which is based on many years and thousands of surveys. Is they look at the 6 fundamental reasons why we work. There are direct motives and there are indirect motives. So the direct motives are play, purpose, and potential. So, and I'll go into each one more in depth. So the direct motives are play, purpose, and potential, and the indirect motives are emotional pressure, economic pressure, and inertia. And you'll see what we've used to do in traditional organizations versus what we require nowadays to create better performance from people and increase engagement. So the first one we're going to look at is play. So it is intrinsic. It's from within us. We play. When we play, there's no goal at the end of the play. The play is just about the play. We, as society, created a competition around play, where there needs to be a winner and needs to be a loser. But it could be play in painting, or play in photography, or play in Legos, or there's so many different ways. It's about trying new things, and you're not fearing failure. You're curious about what is possible and what is not possible. It's about learning and adapting. I did this. This didn't work. Let me try it in a different way. No, it doesn't work. Let me try it in another way. And so if obviously in a working environment, it must be fueled by work itself. So at Google, Zappos, and Toyota, for example, they create times for play. So in Toyota, they can even do it in assembly lines. And so they're entitled, or they're allowed to play with changing the settings or doing whatever they feel needs to be done within a certain time period. They're not measured on the outcome of it being a success. They're measured on how many options, how much play there is involved, how much experimentation is involved, what the learning is, what they adapted on previous learning. So those are the measurements of those organizations. So they create those environments to be able to play. So companies, their big demand is to have people that are creative, that innovation is on everybody's values. But if you look at the measurable, it's about the success of the innovation. It's not about allowing the experimentation without the fear of failure. The second one, so the play is the biggest contributor to performance. But of course, there's a purpose towards it. It needs to be aligned to what's important to us. So as I started off, between beginning and the end of the play, there needs to be a purpose. What you're focusing on and what is important to you needs to be aligned to the why of the organization. So your values, your own personal beliefs needs to see that you're making a difference in your working environment. And I think that is the big difference with millennials, who are not accepting tactical tasks. They want to make an impact, and if they no longer have an impact on an organization, they choose to leave that organization. So their value system, their belief system, and their why is much clearer than the older generations, and that's why they're not able to stay longer in organizations. So your personal why and the company why are extremely important. The next direct motive. So we had play, we had purpose, and the third one, so those are the direct motives, is potential. So, for example, you're working for an organization, and so your why might be starting your own business. So what would be the purpose of you working in a specific organization? The potential is that by working in company A, is that you are able to learn skills that you would need going forward to be able to start your own company. So that is a second order outcome. It is a stepping stone to where you want to go next. Again, it needs awareness of where that goal is going to be and what you would like to achieve from that. Then we come to the indirect motives, which is what we used to do traditionally. Is the first one is the emotional pressure. So this is when we're talking about, I have to work because my colleagues wouldn't be able to do this without us, so we're just working for no reason that we are aware. We've got the fear of a failure, so we rather stick with an unhappy situation than dealing with the uncertainty of a future job, and work is no longer the reason. So this is different to economic pressure, where it's separate from work itself. So that is where we used to do in past, and a lot of measures are still like this, is we're staying in a job because we need to have the money, the financial reward is there. So people come in, they're doing just what is necessary to maintain the job, and so that we don't get fired. Bonuses on a temporary basis can support the person to stay on, but the main reason for them is financial reason, which I'll show later is not one of the best ways to keep people on board. They're definitely not engaged. And then the last ones, and I hope you don't have many of them, or that you are not one of them, is inertia. So you're just coming to work and you've got no reason for knowing why you're doing this. So that is when you are like a hamster on a treadmill. You just carry on. So Zappo's got a great incentive. It's an economic incentive, so that people, when they start working and they don't want to stay on for whatever reason, they get a bonus equal, I think it's, I could be corrected here, but I think it's equal to another month, up to 4 months. So for people, if you want to stay here, you don't get the money, but if you want to leave, this is the bonus that we get. So there's a very different environment than what we currently used to. So this is a summary. So we're looking at the direct motives, which are play, purpose, and potential. So play has got the biggest direct motive. So we're doing what we're doing because we love doing what we're doing, and there's a purpose to it. I have an impact, I have fun, I love doing what I'm doing, and it's always linked to your strengths and what is most important to you. And then also the potential, to a lesser degree, where it is a stepping stone to where you want to go in the future. What we need to understand is what most companies keep on being focused is the indirect motives. So you're going to get a performance bonus when you achieve that. So the economic pressure is a negative motivator. So it's an emotional pressure, and so is inertia, obviously. So if we look at the sources of motivation, you can see here the 6 motives are on the left side. So you can see that play in the work itself is the highest motivator, and the inertia is the biggest demotivator. So in the middle, you get the 0. So at the end of the webinar, or with the link of the webinar tomorrow for the recording, which you'll get a link to register on my platform, so I can give you a worksheet on how to calculate what it is for yourself and or for your team. And yeah, like Lester says, that there's a lot of people that she knows that work due to economic pressure. And that's exactly why we have such great disengagement in South Africa. We're worse than countries in Europe and America because we're lagging on it. We believe that even the people earning at the lowest scale of income, that their purpose for working is finance. Yes, that is a high impact for that level, but there's always a purpose for it. There can always be play. Performance is always improved through play, purpose, and potential. And our job as leaders is to ensure that people understand what they are, allowing them that ability to be able to play, come up with ideas, come up with innovations, implement those innovations, evaluate those innovations, and play in that process. We've stopped learning how to play. And that's why I'm just referring to Belinda's workshop next week, is Agile Leadership is all about this, is play. And she actually uses Lego in that environment. So the 6 motivators are, it's predictable. We know what the outcome is. We can measure it, and it's universal. So it's applicable with parenting and teachers. If you want learning, if it's not associated with play, you're going to see a major difference when play is involved, and it's with that added the purpose of that play. There has to be an impact some way. So it's not playing for the sake of playing. There is an outcome, a learning out of it. And the same with relationship. We can see that relationships that, personal, intimate relationships where there is play involved are the longer lasting relationships in organization and long-standing relationships. So I invite you to explore that side as well. So what most organizations miss is that link between culture and organization performance is this total motivation, and which is measurable. So what we've also found out, let me just do a poll. I forgot about the poll. Sorry, guys. So the poll that I would like to ask you is, to what degree do you believe that culture drives performance? And it could be your personal performance in your own environment, or it can be within your team or within an organization. Or generally, what is your belief as to how culture drives performance in general? So it looks like we've got most 18% of the people say 17% of the people disagree. So you don't believe that, am I correct? You're strong. To what degree do you believe that culture drives performance? So if you strongly disagree, this means that culture does not drive performance. Oh, I would love to explore that with you. So it looks like the majority don't believe that culture drives performance, unless I'm not getting the answers, or I'm not understanding. So for me, the way I've set up the poll is, if you believe that culture drives performance, then you would strongly agree, or strongly agree, yes. Okay, so that was me not looking at the bottom of the poll. So 41% of the people in this room strongly agree, and 36% of the room agrees, with quite a strong 20% disagreeing that culture drives performance. Now, that's good for me to know, to be able to have a webinar around that. Thank you for that feedback. I really appreciate that. So when we're looking at creativity, which is a driving need for organization. They want more innovation, they want more adaptability, they want more resilience in organizations. When we look at the link between the IQ and creative test scores, there is no link. So when we look at the results over the past 25 years, IQ scores have increased, but creativity scores have decreased. So we've looked continuously at productivity and efficiency, and that's where technology has grown so quickly, is we're looking at processes and systems to drive performance. We're looking at tactical performance, i.e. we're looking at you doing a task, and this is what you're going to do, and you stick to that task, and we're not going any further than that. So this is where mass production is involved. That's where, high routine tasks where no innovation is created. However, with technology change happening so fast, whether we want it or not, we have to create measures to see to what degree we can have adaptive performance. And it's called VUCA for performance, because it stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So it's an environment where you have all these things changing all the time, and you're able to adapt through it, and make it being empowered on making decisions. And that only happens when you have, again, that trusted environment where you're able to have conversations which you disagree with others, but still committed going forward as a team. So tactical performance, which works in like mass production, works through indirect motivators. It's economic pressure, emotional pressure, and inertia. That's what happens in tactical performance. But adaptive performance, and that's where this mistake is, I wanted to change the slide before I came on live, but I didn't get a chance to do that. So adaptive performance is through direct motivator, not indirect motivator, direct motivator. So it's about being able to play, being able to experiment, to be curious, to be allowed to change things, to be measured not just on just a set of numbers, but being able to play around and be curious and experiment around the various problem areas in your organization. So there's a belief that there's a trade-off between quantity and quality. There's a belief that we always have to trade off between individuality and teamwork, or that we need to do near-term and long-term results. And that is just a perception. That's not real. So it's all about being able to see both. So trade-off is just a short-sighted version. There's always both sides that you need to do. There's always individuality and a teamwork. And I'll show you that through an example of termites. So if you look at, yes, and I saw TOMO stands for total motivation. I should have explained that earlier. Thank you, Usha, for mentioning that. So we looked at high total motivation culture. So that's looking at cultures that are very engaged, high engagement, lots of people that are coming up with solutions. So the tactical performance is measured. You can't get away with that. We still have to measure, whether it's growth of revenue or growth of what. We still have to do tasks that have to be measured. But we also equally and to the same degree look at adaptive performance. So to what degree did you show resilience? To what degree did you experiment? To what degree did you play within your environment? And of course, maladaptive performance is where we are told that you are doing your job incorrectly, and if you're not doing this, you're out of it. That doesn't happen in a high total motivated culture organization. Then I'd like to talk about 3 different environments that you may find that you're either working in or that you feel that you're part of. So this distraction effect is, for example, they did a study with children. So they were doing tasks. They had to put a puzzle together, and then there would be like a kid within that team that would drop their pen. And then what they did is they would reward the child that would go towards their team member, and they would give them an incentive, a sweet. So every time that one of the team members dropped the pen, there would be a reward for somebody picking it up. So when in that group, when they stopped rewarding the picking up of the pen or helping your teammate, then they stopped helping their teammates. So that is what they call a distraction. So you're doing a task, but you get rewarded for something else. Then you keep on focusing on what gives the reward rather than the task at hand. So we need to be careful where we're doing this in an organization. So that's called the distraction effect. So there's still play, there's still purpose and potential, but it's at a much lower level than in a high culture engagement. The cancellation effect is where what you want to achieve is totally cancelled out by another outcome. So in this environment, what you want to achieve is, for example, they're only measured, if it was that same group of kids, they would only be measured on what their performance is and nothing else. Then there would be no adaptive performance. They just do the task at hand, and everybody else around them can fall apart. Cobra Effect actually is an example from an environment where, for example, in India, when the English took over India as a colony, they had a problem with all the cobras. So what they did is they incentivized people when they brought the dead cobra, that they would get a reward. What happened is that you had the breeding of cobras to be able to get higher rewards. So the total purpose of that incentive to disappear totally, because there were more cobras than ever before. So that's called the Cobra Effect. So the maladaptive performance is extremely high in this environment. And I don't know if you have one of those in your environment. So let's go to a poll. And I would like to for you to look, when you look at the science of total motivation, is measuring yourself where you're at. So if it says my team, so just see what you're doing it for yourself, to what degree you have those different motivators in your life. So whether it's play, potential, purpose, and then the negative ones about economic pressure or emotional pressure. So the poll is up. I would love to know what the average is of the group. So you rate it from a scale of 1 to 7. So 1 being strongly disagree and 7 meaning strongly agreeing. I love these polls. It's so interesting to see what the group comes up with. So currently 67% of you say that my team members and I routinely develop different approaches to familiar tasks, issues, and opportunities. So this is great. So that means that you're able to play around. There's a purpose. You have impact on your environment, and you see the contribution you make to your team. So this is great news. I'm really happy to see that 67%. 20% of you feel that my team often has to abandon or redo work to deal with emergencies or changing priorities. So that means that it's what they say, crisis management. That seems to be, that's when there is no alignment as a whole, as a company, to be able to support each other. So somebody always has to pick up the ball that somebody else drops. So that is always a sign, and that number seems to increase. It's 27% of you. Okay, so I'm seeing that I'm already 40 minutes, so I'll go a little bit faster on this. Thank you so much for this poll. So we've got to understand that the one is not right without the other. Okay, so it's about tactical performance and it's about adaptive performance. It's how well you execute the plan, but it's also how well you diverge from the plan. It's about having a strategy that is the basis of anything that you need to when you're going in an organization, but then it also comes from your culture. You need both at all time. And so I just want to give you quickly this example of the termite. So the termite mound is an example of a phenomenon known as emergence. So emergence occurs when the individual components of a collective are able to organize themselves into a system that is far more complicated than the sum of its parts. So it means that each part plays a specific role, working with other parts to work together. In a termite mound, for an example, is each termite can play multiple roles depending on the circumstances. And their main role is to change, the most important thing in a termite is the temperature control within the termite. So they have to open ventilators and close ventilators to keep the perfect temperature in that environment so the fungi grows that they need for food supply. So they can live up to 2,000 years. So that's the kind of environment we need to create, keeping the same temperature of a room to be able to sustain the highest performance. So what we need to do is, our goal is to create an adaptive performance culture through the mechanism of total motivation, and the tool is culture. So here you're looking at leaders. A quick summary of this is leadership archetypes. So you've got the 4 different types of leaderships: the quid pro quo, where it's just about tactical performance, it's you do this, you get that. Then you get the managers that are hands off. You do whatever you want to do. I'm not getting involved, which allows the individuals to play more. Then you get the enthusiasts, where they really want to get involved with you. They really want you to have a purpose. They really have to. They really want to for you to be the best you can be, but they're not involved. So they're using economic pressure and emotional pressure to make that sustainable. But the fire starter, where you can see the average total motivation of a subordinate is the highest, has got the greatest engagement from their employees. So fire starters, they will create time to experiment and play. They'll make you understand why your role is strong. They'll see or create a role model that is perfect for you based on your strengths, based on what you can contribute the most, where you can add the most value. And the emotional pressure, what they're looking at is making sure that the targets are fair. So they get the buy-in of the employee to make sure that, yes, do you agree with this? Is this achievable? Is this honest? Do we share it across board? Is it a common agreed goal? And on the financial side is about a transparent economic reward or payment that is transparent, it's fair, and can be compared across the board. And what's important with fire starters is they make it easy to get things done. Often I go into an organization because and the biggest thing is they say, I can't do this, I'm not empowered to do this, or I don't have access to this document, but I'm measured on the metrics that are shown there, but I don't have access on it on a regular basis. So this is inertia. Make it easier for your team to get things done. and so they don't waste effort. If you look at Starbucks, so their mission is about creating inspired moments in each customer's day, and what they measured on are anticipate, connect, own, and personalize. And you can see it when you're going to a Starbucks shop. It's all about, anticipating who they come. So it's a woman, it's a man, it's likely to be this. They're connecting with each person. They put your name on the cup. They own each customer, and they make each interaction a personal one. So examples of, so when you're looking at your measurements, so try and change tactical goals to adaptive goals by changing the language with the same outcome with a different language. So it's about, for example, a tactical goal would be increase the number of customers buying two of our products by 5%. Change that to find 3 ways to describe how 2 of our products create value together. Can you see that the one is that is the outcome? The other one is the process to get to that outcome. But allowing, it doesn't mean that it needs to be successful. It needs to be about creativity and innovation and play and curiosity. I'll just go quickly through the slide. You'll have it as part of the replay, so you can stay longer on this slide. But the role design, for each employee to understand that the role that is designed for this employee is the best that can be, based on what is important to them and based on their strengths and based on their skills last. So that is the highest total motivation factor. And just a little bit about what I do in a team environment. I will look at all these. So you can't look at just one thing in isolation. You have to look at a variety of things. You've got to scan the individual, you've got to scan the team, you've got to scan the environment. Nothing is working in isolation. It's like a flock of birds. So when a bird changes direction, you'll see that the form of the flock of birds change. They all ultimately fly together, but each one has got its own individuality in that flock of birds. I also I started off by saying that Contribution Compass is one of the tools, the first tools that I use when I work with organization or coaching, and understanding where the underlying strengths are of our individual. So I strongly encourage you, if you haven't done so, to complete your Contribution Compass token. It's all about understanding where you're adding the most value to yourself and to everybody around you in that process. So really understanding, what am I good at? Where can I contribute the most to a team? And if you add that, understanding your why, you're right on your way to becoming the best you can be. When we're looking at teams, it's also about, so once we know what the strengths are, understanding that when we're creating teams for specific projects, is we need to create agile teams for specific projects. So it's not per hierarchy, it's cross-functional at different levels based on the strengths and the outcomes that we want to achieve. So again, there we would use the Contribution Compass and using the strengths of the individuals within a team. For the Contribution Compass, again, there is that that email address. Please phone, email Karen@enshrineplacements.com. It's in your chat box. Contribution Compass is also presenting a webinar, a workshop on the 10th of April. They're talking exactly what we're talking about, maximizing your team contribution workshop. So using the Contribution Compass tool as a basis to create greater engaging teams and creating greater performance. So it's on in Cape Town. It's on the 10th of April. Sorry, this one is in Sandton, sorry. I thought it was the Cape Town one. Sorry, I got the date wrong for the Cape Town one. So it's Wednesday, the 10th of April. I really encourage you, even if you haven't got a team, but you're in a leadership position and looking for a job in that environment, this is a great great workshop to go to. So what you will learn is how to support your team to growth and contribute more. It's about understanding how to maximize the use of your time. It's about applying this tool in a deeper team engagement. There's great exercises. It's developed by Belinda, the course, and it's very engaging. It's very applicable. You walk with that tools to be able to implement with immediate effect. And with this, I'd like to open the floor to questions and answers. I'll try to answer them. I will be sending the replay of the webinar to you guys, and a link to become a member of my website. And once you become a member, I can share with you the diagnostic tool for total motivation, so you can then apply it for yourself as where you're at, and how to apply it in your working environment. And if you're needing support, you're very welcome to contact me on ann@barrett.co.za or ann@teamdynamics.co.za. I love this quote: if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the people to gather wood. Divide the work, give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. Isn't it so beautiful? So it's about just living your life, being the best you can be at all times. And that is my wish for you and everyone in your own teams. I don't see any questions at this stage. Stephen says, a very useful, informative presentation. Many take-home messages from this. Thanks. I would love to know what the one take-home message is. What is your insight for you out of this workshop? I will also ask you, when we send out the webinar replay, we'll also ask you for your feedback on the webinar so we can continuously improve. Another comment is, thanks for a very informative session. I have a few invisible cogwheels that have started turning. Oh, I love that. Very pretty picture to see. And so obviously those invisible cogwheels have turned into visible cogwheels. So that's awesome. Well done. So I don't see questions or answers or question requests or other comments. I'd love to have for you to give me your insight, one word as to what you believe is that a takeaway for you. What is your nugget or your diamond that you can take away from this session? What I can learn from this session is I set up a number of polls, and I didn't use all those polls, which could have added more value for me going forward. So the question is, where do we start with TOMO? What is the first step? So to understand, so diagnose and the 5 steps of total motivation, I've got a workbook for you. It is available on my website. So for that, you would need to link to my website, www.teamdynamics.co.za. And then there's a link, there's a request that says become a member. Once you become a member, you automatically get the link to the diagnostic tool, plus the 5 steps to get to the end, to the measurement and how to go forward. So it's a 5-step plus the tool itself, where you can measure where you're now and where you want to be, and then the steps in between. So the link to the website will also be sent in the replay webinar email tomorrow. Thank you, Usha. So Naline's takeaway is play. Yes, isn't it wonderful? It's, it's just there for us to reach out, and we can do it at any time, and it's awesome. Karen's value is that changing tactical goals to adaptive goals. How else can it be done? I know, Karen, isn't it? But if it was so obvious, how come not many more of us are doing it? Karen's takeaway is how important play is in your working environment, and linking that, your working environment, to individuals and teams. Why? the purpose of why you are here. That's exactly it. We're not here to work, we're here to contribute. How does our contribution look like? How do we add the most value? Catherine says, I love the fact that play is such an important part of what makes an organizational function and be productive. So Catherine, yeah, my invitation is to give me feedback of where you've implemented it in your environment and what the results have been. So I would love to get engagement on that, so that I can learn and be adaptive going forward as well. Lance is saying, my takeaway is fun with purpose. Yeah, that's great. It's awesome. Thank you for your sharing. And I don't see any other engagement or any other feedbacks. Sorry, Francois, I missed you. Missed your comment. In my profession, I constantly deal with being judged on performance. So this webinar topic gives me more insight in the factors involved to be constantly successful. It is good to be reminded of the basics when you tend to forget. And that is important, that if you're working in an environment that is not functioning this way, send them the webinar links once you get them, sit in with them, and give them feedback onto where that is that you're at, and where you believe by creating adaptive motivation, adaptive performance, how could the engagement look like going forward? So first of all, you would need to be able to have those difficult conversations. So hopefully that is possible for you. And in any case, I would encourage you to do that, and rather than sitting disengaged in an environment, you can add value in any team that you are. So I encourage you to do that. Abby says, this is a good presentation. Thank you very much for this comment. I really, really appreciate. Francois says, I agree with Lance's remark on fun with purpose. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. And with this, I wish you a playful, purposeful, and potentially exciting day for you. You can create it today, anytime, any day. Thank you much for your contribution. If you got more questions, you know how to contact me. Thank you to my team, Usha, Karen, and Belinda. You guys are awesome. Looking forward to the next webinar. Thank you very much.